I'm going to discuss a couple of cases that we had at Florida State University, and I want to reiterate something Ashley Stevens said a couple of days ago, which is you need to assess the researcher that you're going to be dealing with up front. And in my career, numerous times I and the office were passionate about projects. And we were going to do the deal come hell or high water, okay? Pardon the language. So this is more than just the machinery cranking through. And I want to talk to you, all right? Musical pacifier, okay. Turns out, if you're a baby born prematurely, you don't know how to, the baby doesn't know how to feed itself, okay? And when the baby's born, it must go into the intensive care unit for neonatals. And the nurses then hold the baby with a bottle of milk, and the baby randomly is sucking because it doesn't know how to feed itself. And eventually, before the nurse gets fed up, and the child stops screaming because they're not being fed, hopefully the child begins to suck in what's called a nutritious manner, and it begins to feed itself. So in our Department of Music Therapy, this is a non-STEM faculty, music therapy, Jane Stanley thought, surely there's a way to train the baby faster. And she was right. So she invented a little prototype, which was a plastic nipple with a chip in it that was able to detect the motion of the baby's mouth interacting with the nipple. Okay? And when the motion was nutritive, in other words, the baby could feed, the chip turned on a tape recorder. And the mother's voice singing a lullaby to the baby came on. All right? It only came on when the kid was making the right motions. And it worked. What happened, jumping ahead, was that instead of being in the neonatal unit for about 10 days, hugely stressful for the baby, the parents were in a total panic, and the nurse was under immense stress dealing with these non-responsive kids all the time. The 10 days got reduced to 4 days. And it was routine. Jane went to a couple of trade shows trade shows of neonatal nurses who thought this was the best thing since sliced bread. The university had a prototype gap fund built. She used some money to build a couple of prototypes, went out, got more data, did a small publication. And then I was introduced to her, loved it, and we found a company that sold equipment into the neonatal unit. It was a baby incubator company, okay? Big plastic box, you put the kid in, keep it warm. And they got very excited about this. They saw synergies. We negotiated the deal, and then we were about to sign, and I got a phone call saying, deal's off. Our entire company's been sold to GE Healthcare. They looked at the market possibilities of the device, and it's much too small for the GE Healthcare to worry about. So the whole thing fell apart. Because we were passionate about the project, we thought, okay, fine. We found a woman entrepreneur who ran a venture capital fund. She was willing to raise $300,000 and form a small company and move forward. Given there was market appeal demonstrated, a publication, okay, and an interest by a big player in the field, but it didn't work out. It all went in, that moved forward, and then it turned out that her personality interactions with the founders, some of the investors, was toxic. And again, the thing fell apart. We thought, okay, back into the breach. We were not going to give up. We happened to find, because we were out looking for entrepreneurs, venture money, we were in North Florida. We found a venture capital company in South Florida that made small investments. The analyst took a look at this. She said to us, you know, I'm going to recommend an investment. More than that, I have medical device development background. I want to move from the venture fund and be CEO in the company with stock and make it happen. We did that, and it worked, okay? Her personality was good, her skills were excellent, the venture firm put money in, the market was ready, okay? It had to be approved by a regulator, not FDA, but others. That was done, and it took off. Now, did we sell 100 million of these things? No, that wasn't the point, okay? Ultimately, about 8 years later, the company was sold to a medical device company in Arizona, which still sells the product. We went back to the company. Jane, clever person, said, look, there's a lot of babies born prematurely where the native language is not English. And so an English language lullaby is a bit of a waste of time. She was in a department of music therapy that brought people in from around the globe. So she came to me and said, all right, look, I'm going to get a number of our students from Thailand, from China, from Chile, to sing lullabies in their own language. And we're going to license it to the company when they wanted to expand outside the United States. Okay, so there was another little hiccup on their positive growth to the deal. All right, I'm going to come back to this social innovations. You know what social innovations are? Yes? No? Not really. Okay. I'll come back here in a sec. All right. So again, this is what I've just covered. It took 8 years, total of 8 years. Okay. And do we make money? The philosophy was we could care less whether we made any money. And we charged, I think it was for the license, $500 a year for 4 years, and then nothing. Okay, just some modest little something or other, in order to have a number to put into our tracking books. That was it. That's all we wanted to do, frankly. I went to the president of the university and explained what was going on. He was incredibly excited because he could tell this story about research in our institution to parents and students, to donors, to people in the state government, and certainly into the healthcare industry. So he was thrilled about this. So that was the positive aspect that came out of it. Now, let's see if I can get this to work. What button do I push to make this happen? Anyone know? This is a 3-minute video. If we can get it to work, it's worthwhile. If it
It's said music can heal the soul. At Florida State University, a professor has developed a musical device to help premature babies grow and become healthy.
And it seems the problem is when the babies are born very early, the neurological system is too immature to support independent feeding.
As babies suck on the Pacifier-activated lullaby device, or PAL, they get a musical reward in the form of a lullaby.
When the bell breaks
The soothing lullaby encourages the infant to continue to suck, essentially teaching the child to eat.
So we feel like we're accomplishing two major milestones. Music is an incentive. It's pleasant to the baby. They will suck a great deal more in order to listen to the music, and that transfers to a feeding skill, and they almost immediately go to independent feeding, sometimes with as little as 15 minutes of training, which is kind of a miracle when you consider how big this problem is.
Okay, are you ready? Okay.
Nurses at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit use the device daily. Babies using the device get bigger, stronger, and ultimately make the trip home much faster.
And what we've seen is the babies that use the PAL, that they become used to that non-nutritive sucking. They're ready to eat sooner. They go home from the hospital sooner. They tolerate their feedings better. They're great.
And for parents who are spending day in and day out in the NICU, the PAL device gives them comfort and helps them stay tied to their baby's progress.
It helps strengthen their muscles so that when they latch on to the nipple or to the bottle, they can hold on for longer and feed for, the whole bottle, the whole feed.
Due to a life-threatening illness, Carlson's twins came 9 weeks early. Because they were early, they have stayed in the NICU for more than a month getting extra care.
So I've noticed in the past 2 weeks since they've been doing this, they're finishing bottles, and we're actually starting to latch on to me, which is the end game.
While Carlson visits daily, nurses find with PAL it gives mothers a chance to connect with their babies who so often stay in the incubators.
So this is a chance that while they've lost a lot of control, that at this point when they're able to come in and work with music therapy, with a PAL, with their little one, that they can begin to have that control back again and really be an active part of the recovery and the healing and the growth and development of their little one.
She can get big and smiley and goofy.
For this one family, they're happy to have the connection.
Anything to help Quinn and Rowan and make them stronger and get them, home sooner is, great.
Until recently, Dr. Stanley's device was only in use in Tallahassee. Now, thanks to an investment from Powers Device Technologies, the device is in mass production.
So it's very exciting to think that finally it will be available to all of the babies that need some help with this phase of their development in the NICU.
The Pacifier-activated lullaby is now available to all hospitals nationwide and will soon be available to parents to help babies build strength and come home sooner. All thanks to a Florida State University professor who believes in the healing power of music.
There is the power of a video, okay? These days with YouTube, you should be able to work with your faculty member and put together maybe either a quick podcast or a little video where there's a script where the faculty member talks about the invention and then send it around to potential licensees who, 3.5 minutes, you understand instantly what's going on, rather than reading reams and reams and reams, and decide I'm interested. So I suggest to you the power of the visual. All right, Taxol. Long story, I'm not going to get into it terribly much. President Nixon declared war on cancer and said, we haven't found the right killer molecule. So let's go out and look at naturally occurring molecules in mud, in leaves. And so the program went on for about 8 years, and the one compound that made it in the market was Taxol. Very complex organic molecule. The National Cancer Institute performed clinical trials in humans and found it worked terrifically well, and then put the clinical data up for auction and said to big multinationals, if you're interested, we will provide the clinical data to you for the FDA. Bristol Myers Squibb won, then announced to the world, okay, at the moment we use naturally occurring Taxol, which is effectively an insecticide in the Pacific yew tree bark, okay? And we can't destroy enough trees fast enough to take the molecule globally. So they said, we're interested in people that can help us synthesize it from bottled compounds. Bob Holton came forward with a semi-synthetic chemical process, which after 4 pot steps, 85% yield led to the natural compound. So we then licensed that to Bristol Myers Squibb. For a variety of license reasons, we got an upfront payment of $20 million. And the process failed to scale. It didn't work. It worked in the lab, but it didn't scale. So I phoned Bob and I said, are the Bristol chemists no good? He said, oh, no, they're really good. The chemistry's wrong. So I said, Bob, unless we can figure this out, we're going to have to return the $20 million. He said, I've got another process which we substituted in the license. Bob then wanted terms so he could use his own process to form a small company to create Taxol analogs, looking for a compound that had fewer side effects and was more efficient. And we were able to work out the deal. The FSU method entered the market in '93, as I've told you before. Prior treatment of women who were dying from breast and ovarian cancers, the response rate 6%. Taxol came on the market, the percent went to 30%. It was a miracle drug. And the National Cancer Institute of the United States said publicly, it is a miracle drug. We received this amount of royalties, and then I got a phone call about 4 years into this. John, we're moving strategically, we're moving from a chemical company to a biotech fermentation company. Your royalty is going to go to 0. So, negotiate all you want. You get out in the market, it's out of your control. Our neckties ran into Casual Fridays. Bang, finished. Taxol, 5 or 6 years left in the patents. Still efficient, cost effective, bang. Royalties, right to 0. So keep in mind that when you negotiate and do the deal, what the next step is and how successful it is unknown. And that's the risk the company is taking. So they may come back to you and want to renegotiate because of unexpected events. That's it. Questions? Nope, done. Who's next? Dick?
Yeah, we can take Richard's cases also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have around 15 minutes or so.
It's okay. I can do 2 or 2 hours or 2 days. So I was asked to talk about some tech transfer case studies, and I waited till the last minute. I was flying over the pond, as we call it, and I just said, I'm just going to wait for the moment when I start getting inspired, when I'm not thinking of other things. And so what I did was finally had some time, quiet time, nothing else, no other responsibilities, and just sat down. And I let them come to me. And, you know, if you've done it as long as I have with as many things, I just said, okay, as they come, I'll just jot them down. And I did. And they're in no particular order. They're just, I think, lessons. Lessons learned. Important, sometimes big important, sometimes not so important. But lessons learned that I learned. And so I listed those. And then I asked that they be sent out to you, and you all took a look at them and went, yeah, I'm interested in this one and this one. I think the whole list was like 15 or more. And so we have the top 5 here. So I was going to just quickly go through these. Now, each of these stories I could go on into detail, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to tell you the lesson learned. And if you have questions, just let me know. Yeah, let's see. This is actually one. This was kind of an eye-opener for me. What I call here parallel commercialization paths or implementation. And this actually makes sense here because we were commercializing and implementing. By implementing, remember me saying a few days ago that when profit, you know, when revenue isn't so critical, that's not the top priority, like when I talked about that hand, you know, commercialization, no, implementation. So we had some ag tech, and right now I was trying to think about it, exactly which one. I can't remember if it was a plant variety or just what it was. But we realized that we had a split personality, and we do. You know, we are a public research institution, and yeah, we want to help industry, like go out there, new products, market share increase, make money. That's good, it floats the economy up, that's all good, and we get a share. We have other constituencies, and I think I told some of you I started coming to India in my first trip in 1992, and I became aware, you know, there's nothing like coming to India to start learning about India, and then I would come every year and see the reality here, and the reality is you got the bottom of the pyramid economically, and you have a lot of people there in that space, and your farmer community is so big and so important. And I know culturally farmers play an important role. They kind of used to in the U.S. and Canada, but that's kind of declined as, you know, industrialization, et cetera, has, you know, kind of taken over, and fewer people involved in farming, smaller and smaller percentage. But India is a little different. And so I had an appreciation for this situation where our technology really belonged in the hands of 2 different kinds of entities. One was big plantation, factory farms, if you will, the big guys. And yeah, we're not talking philanthropy with those guys. No, we're talking about upfronts, license milestones, royalties, et cetera, because what are they doing? They're producing, they're exporting, they're doing all kinds of things, they're making a lot of money, that's fantastic. But this is not humanitarian. But by the same token, this technology also had potential for smallholders. And I mean, you know, in hectares, I can't remember, we actually had a definition that you were a smallholder if you had X hectares or less. And our partner, and I don't remember the ministry, but it was a ministry. What I remember, sort of the equivalent of our U.S. Department of Agriculture, so your Ministry of Agriculture, and we worked with them to create mechanisms where they would take our technology and essentially make it available at cost. At the same time, we're putting it in the hands of big players and charging royalties. So the point here being, you can get a little more creative with your licensing models, even with the same technology. Okay, so that was that point. Oh yeah, so this one actually isn't in the top 5, but I like this one, so I'm going to say it anyway. The Cornell red flesh potato. So Cornell is a breeder. We've been breeding potatoes for 100 and I don't know how many, 130, 40 years. And we've produced some really valuable potatoes, and most of the world doesn't know that. Our potato growers do. The New York potato growers, significant.
Richard, can I just so as per your instruction, we just first put out the entire list.
Oh, the entire list.
Yeah. If you could just quickly browse through, the last one will have the top 5, which you
the
have
last
on
slide
your
will
paper.
have the top 5.
Yeah.
I will do that, but let me just finish this one.
Sure. Just wanted to tell you.
This is for me, if you don't mind. So just very quickly, so we do the same thing. Potato breeder comes to me and goes, oh, we got a new potato. I go, okay, great. What does it do? Most of the time, it was for disease resistance or some other trait that the grower. So our breeder would produce, who was the client? The grower. And so that was our tradition. And when I took over in 1990, we just did one thing. Take potato variety, license to growers in really low terms, practically nothing. So, because that was our internal constituencies. And then one day the new potato breeder, the old potato breeder had retired, and the new potato breeder comes in, he says, I've got a new potato. It's red flesh, and that means, if you cut it open, it's a red color, pink, rosy color. And I went, oh, that's kind of nice. And I said, but I've seen that before. And he goes, well, in this case, you can take that potato and put it in boiling water, and the red stays. I went, okay, well, that's kind of intriguing, isn't it? It's probably got some nutritional value, but anyway, it looks nice. I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. Cool factor high. So I go to the New York State potato growers, who are our clients, and I go, because I will always go to their meetings, and there'd be like about, well, not this many people, but I'd say, okay, here's our latest potato variety. And I told them about this one, and there was like this, what? A red flesh potato, and they're all like, we don't care. And I was like, well, but you should care, because this has real potential. And they go, we're not interested. So I'm like, they didn't want to license it. And so then I get a call from the Ottawa in Canada Potato Growers Association. They wanted it, and I'm like, oh no, this is going to be there can be a war here. We're going to create a war over potatoes. And I'd be like, no, I don't want to do this. So what am I going to do? I decided that suddenly it hit me, why do I always go to the same kinds of licensees over and over and over? Potato growers. And I went, this particular potato isn't appealing to the potato grower, because potato growers want disease resistance and yield. This potato appeals to who? The person in the grocery store, the person in the market buying the potato for dinner, for the festival, right? So, oh, wait a minute, maybe I should look a little for somebody different, some other entity in the value chain. I'd always just been focused on this part of the value chain. So I went, I'm going to contact, any of you who've ever been in the U.S., up in the Northeast, we have a grocery store chain called Wegmans. They are so innovative. They are the most innovative grocery store, and their produce section is phenomenal. A lot of organic, and all the packaging is really just cutting edge. It's great, and everything's so fresh and wonderful. And they do great campaigns. They're big believers in farmers. They have good connections with farmers. So I try this. I go to Wegmans and I say, hey, because do you remember me saying that when I license, I say I give you the right to make, use, sell, but I also give you the right to make or have made. So I thought, well, my licensee doesn't have to be able to grow potatoes. So I went to Wegmans, because Wegmans doesn't grow potatoes. They buy potatoes. So I went to the vice president for produce, and I said, I got something here. Do you want to talk? And he was like, of course I'd love to talk. So we sat down. They wanted to ultimately do a license on red flesh potatoes. They became licensee. They contracted with growers, and suddenly the New York growers are going, oh, wait a minute, maybe we do like this red flesh potato. And Wegmans proceeded to develop a potato campaign around the 4th of July with a bag. You would buy a bag of potatoes with red, white, and blue potatoes. My point being, if you are the licensor, if you're the designer, don't just stick with one kind of company in the value chain. Oh, there will be the obvious ones. You got a widget, go to the widget manufacturers, of course. Why not? That's the obvious. But expand your thinking. Look around. Maybe they're going to be, the innovators are somewhere else in the value chain. Okay, so that's that one. All right, let's get to, all right, so these are the, I mean, this is one, I love all of these. Sound licensing is a pun because I made money for the university by licensing sounds, recording of natural sounds, primarily birds. And that's when you start getting really creative and looking at, well, I don't have a patent. And frankly, this one, I know I'm varying from what I said I would do, but this one is worth mentioning because I had a passion, I still have a passion for conservation, biological conservation. I believe, you know, I get really, sorry about that, I get it, it hits me when I see the, you know, the destruction, the implosion of insect populations and therefore bird populations. And I like to do what I can to help bioconservation. And we have something called the Laboratory of Ornithology, which is really the premier ornithological research institution in the US. And there's a lot going on there for research, but also for just outreach and a lot of public activities and so on. Well, I wanted to do anything I could to help those folks because I believe in their mission. They're trying to conserve birds. If anybody's interested in birds, you can go to the Lab of O Nest Cam, and they've got nest cams of birds all over the world. It's fascinating. I suddenly realized they had this, it's called the Macaulay Library of Natural Sounds. Cornell researchers started making recordings of primarily birds, but also amphibians, reptiles, other animals back in the 1920s, and then curating them, collecting them, et cetera. And now we have the world-class collection of natural sounds, and including animals that are now extinct. You know, it's like, wow, that's some value, isn't it? So what I did was I went, oh, I wonder what we can do with this. Well, kind of a long story, but I'll just get to the point. I found a licensee who wanted to put our bird sounds in their stuffed toys, their stuffed birds. And they paid us a nice royalty, and we had no patent. We used trademark on that one, Lab of Ornithology. You can use copyright to some degree. But anyway, and we started to see a lot of money flow in. You know, John was talking about the neckties. Well, in this case, it was stuffed animals. And it just came about because I wanted to do it. They didn't come to me. I actually had to go to them and go, you know, guys, let's think of something here. And the result was we brought in, several $100,000 worth of license revenue to our Laboratory of Ornithology.
Richard,
yeah.
If we can wrap up in 5 more minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Yeah. Here is a question.
Is this it?
There is a question from the
question.
participant.
So you said that sound licensing, you did a trademark licensing. So the agreement clauses, like when you patent, license a patent and the trademark, how that
We didn't
is-
patent. You couldn't
No,
patent.
you did not patent it, but you licensed the trademark is something that you
Right.
said. So in that case, how you see the terms that you will put across in the agreement? Because royalties also you said like you have claimed.
Well, what we said was, if you sign this license agreement, we're going to give you access to a certain limited number of these sounds, and you're given the right and the obligation to put this laboratory of ornithology trademark on your products, and you pay us for that. You pay us a certain fee.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
This is it. 1, 2, 3. Is this it?
Yeah, this is the list, and just one more click.
Oh, what?
Okay, that was the list. Go back.
That was the list.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so just very quickly, in a few minutes, the key thing here, the Biolistic story, long story, it was really Cornell's first startup after our policy shifted so we could take equity. Back in 1989 is when that happened. And the key point here is that it became apparent to those of us at the early stage, and we really started to build this into our business model, and that is everybody around the table, the entrepreneur, the licensor, the inventor, everybody realizing that this startup doesn't have a long future. It's not really going to fly in the long run. But what it can do is take the technology from where it is now and bring it up to a point where it's an ideal target for acquisition. So the company would be sold, would be acquired by a bigger player. And you have to get people like entrepreneurs who understand that. Because what's going to happen, they get going and things get up to this point and they may be asked to leave. Right? And some entrepreneurs don't want to do that, and that's understandable. But we all agree, okay, is this what we're doing? Is this our strategy? Yes. And it's a very viable strategy. We like it. We did it quite a few times, actually. Yeah, this one, license transfers, we learned the hard way. We did not put it as a requirement that the license agreement may not be transferred to another party without our written approval. And so what happened in the case that really stimulated our including that provision was that our licensee, exclusive licensee, took it. They didn't really do much with it. They kind of just sat on it, and then just before they had to start their milestone payments and so on, they turned around and they sold it for, they sold the license agreement for a ton of money. And we got nothing for it. And we just looked at that and said, that just doesn't seem right. So we decided that we would put this clause in. And so that they have to come back to us, which kept us in the loop. And so then we would negotiate with them. And so all we wanted was a reasonable portion of that transfer event. So we put that in there, and it stayed in our license agreements forever after that. I mentioned this, so we're not going to talk about this again. This commercialization or implementation, I call it implementation when the point isn't the money. The point is social good, environmental good, okay? I think as public sector research institutions, we all ought to have a few of these. John talks about them. And, they're not just the right thing to do. They're good for PR. And so I recommend, don't forget these. Oh, and here's one. Okay, the tiger by the tail. I don't know about you all, but one of the reasons I like this job is because I had this dream that maybe someday this invention would show up on my desk and it would be like the equivalent of the first steam engine or something like that, like the cure for Alzheimer's or some invention that was like something profound impactful that people, I mean, I don't think my ego was so into it, but, I wouldn't mind if they put it on my tombstone, He was the guy that gave us that new snack food. No, something more profound than that. So I always hoped I'd get something like that. And one day I got this invention disclosure from a researcher, a difficult guy to work with, but a brilliant guy. He worked as a researcher in our national nanofabrication facility, so making nanoscale devices. And a lot of interesting technology came out of that. And he submits this thing, and I look at it, I go, wait a minute, this is a way to manufacture an LED that would produce light that you could use for illumination in a room. And this did not exist. And I'm like, oh, this is it. This is my time. I'm going to bring the light to the world. Fantastic. And I'm just, oh, this is great. So I do the usual. I get ready. I line up the usual suspects of, target companies, and I do my tech brief, and I go out there. I got zero. I got people just had no interest whatsoever. There was even kind of like this, like I was shining it in their face, and they were like, no. And it wasn't until and I never got a licensee out of it. And we ended up folding, just going, well, nothing's going to happen with this. And then a few years later, I was alerted to this idea of disruptive technology. There was a guy in our business school who taught this, the challenge and the beauty, the two-edged sword of the disruptive technology. And I realized that that's what I had in my hands, was a disruptive technology. And what I didn't really appreciate at the time, but then I did later, was that I was holding this disruptive technology which was so advanced that the system couldn't absorb it. Not only couldn't it absorb it, but the system, let's call it the infrastructure, back then it was fluorescence and incandescence, and the whole system for how many decades had been set up for all of that. Not only did I find just people were like, what is this? People were like, go away. You're bothering me. Plus, if this works, it'll probably take away my business in incandescent and fluorescent. So years later, I went, wow, I had a disruptive technology which is hugely potentially valuable, but also hugely problematic, where people are like, no, I don't want to touch it. So I didn't know what to do with it. Now I would have done it differently, because what I learned was, maybe you know this, that the LED did develop right there. And how did that happen? There were some other inventors. I think the Japanese inventors were the ones that probably really got it going, and then it gradually started to develop and ultimately turned into its own. I mean, you can't even buy incandescent lights, I don't think, anymore in the US. But here's how they started. Here's how the tech transfer mindset worked, is those first early technologies, they licensed the technology in a couple of areas. One was key fobs. Do you know what I mean by a key fob? Where your key, it's like on the keychain, and the little light, the little flashlight, key fob. No infrastructure. It's not disruptive. And then the other thing they did was they put it in toys, eyes and all kinds of things. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of, you got a disruptive technology, and what did I do? I went right up to the big wall and went, actually with my head, and nothing happened. And now I look back and go, wow, if I'd really been a little more creative, a little more thoughtful, and I knew more about disruptive technologies, I would have taken a more creative route. So I would just say, even if it's not disruptive, you know, it's one of those things I wish you live in interesting times, which is I wish you have disruptive technology because it's exciting and a challenge, but think creatively about it. But even if you don't have a disruptive technology, even if you have new technology, you still got to get a little creative in terms of thinking about what that commercialization pathway, and maybe it's going to be a little, like I said, the red flesh potato. Maybe you're going to find a different type of licensee or, you know, completely different industry, et cetera. So with that, I guess we'll say it's, we're done.
Richard, you wanted to show one slide on the Cornell?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, quickly if you can.
Have I shown
Yeah,
this before?
this
I
one.
showed you. You guys saw this.
Huh,
Okay.
Then it's fine. Yeah.
Well, see, if I do it again, it'll really get in there.
No, I was not aware. Sorry.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Let's
Thanks.
close for.
Thanks, everybody. Okay.